Alright, so today we'll be constructing this object here, and this is something that should be familiar to you because this is what we call a hexagonal knot, right? Probably something that you've seen maybe in your home or somewhere else, but it's something that's pretty common that they use to tighten bolts with, right? So you can see here that you're given the measurement for one side for this hexagon, and you're given the thickness, and you're also given the diameter basically of this circle here, right? So as per usual, the first thing you're going to do, you're going to set your units, and then what we'll be doing is we'll be creating new layers, right? So this layer I'll be naming as guidelines, because we're not only doing the isometric projection, but we're also doing the orthographic projection for this as well. All right. So we can set a light line basically as the guideline. So I'm just going to choose this gray color here, and we're also going to need an outline layer, and this is going to be used for your isometric projection, right? And as per usual, the outline is usually thicker than the other lines, right? So before we can start our isometric projection, we need to construct a normal hexagon for us using the measurement that you're given here, right? So we're going to enable ortho mode, and seeing that I don't have some things here enabled on my AutoCAD, I'm just going to enable them, right, using this here. So this is line weight. I'm going to want to turn line weight on, which is this icon. And yeah, that's pretty much it there. So what I'm just going to make sure as well is that all of these things here are ticked off, right? You have a check mark next to them. So now we can draw this hexagon for us, right? Now, there's actually a fast way to draw this. If you look here, you're going to see this rectangle icon, and if you click on the arrow next to it, there's going to be the polygon option there. So you click on polygon, it's going to ask you to enter the number of sides for us, and seeing that it's a hexagon, that will be 6, and then you press enter. Then it would ask you to specify the center of the polygon, and we want this to be inscribed, so you're going to type in I and then enter, right? And after you do that, you'll be able to draw your hexagon, right? So seeing that the measurement for the hexagon is 45, you're just going to type in 45 on your keyboard, and you're going to press enter, right? So you can see that I have my measurement there, 45, right? I'm just going to move this out of the way, and I'm just going to resize this here. Now, the next thing we want to do here, we want to enclose this hexagon, right? So, seeing that we're only using guideline for the orthographic projection, we can also make use of it here, right? So just change your layer to the guideline layer, and you're going to start by drawing this line here. The length doesn't really matter, and you're going to extend it towards the bottom as well, right? And then what we could do, we could mirror it on the opposite side, right? And save some time there. So it's good to get acquainted with these tools because the more you use them, or the more you use your brain basically, the better or the faster you would get these drawings done, right? So we need to get the line at the top and the bottom as well. So we can do the same here. We can just draw it any length, and we can just extend this, and then we can simply just mirror it so that we get it on the opposite side there. And just to neaten your drawing a little, you could just trim out the extra. So before we can start the isometric projection, we can probably dimension this here, right? So we did dimensioning before, but just a quick recap. If you come to this icon here, and you can see it's called dimension style, you would have to click on modify, and on the first tab here, which is line, here you could change it to 3. In fact, no, 3 is too much. Let's change it to 1. Symbols and arrows, arrow size, you can set that to 3. And the next tab, text, you could change that to ISO standard. Text placement would be above, and then the text height would be 5. Primary units, change the precision to 0 because we don't really need decimal points. And can come back to line here. The 1 looks a little too short, so we can probably change that to 3 now, right? Offset from origin, also 3. So now we have the standard that we're supposed to have, right? And this is what you call ISO standard, right? It's something that you should be doing for every drawing that you're dimensioning basically. And you're going to notice that for a lot of these settings we reuse 3, right? The only thing that's different is the text size, which is 5, right? So now we could dimension these measurements here. So we have 23. This is also the same, 23. And then we would need to know this length. And we would also need to know this measurement here, right? Another measurement that you have to know is this one. So we have these measurements, we have this measurement here, which is halfway, and we have the measurement for the rectangle that's enclosing the hexagon here, right? So now we can actually start drawing the shape here, right? So I'm going to stick with my guideline layer here because it's actually working better than the default layer. And at the bottom here, when we did isometric projection before, you should remember ISO draft, this icon here. Now, seeing that we're going to be drawing the hexagon first, we're going to need to switch to this plane here, which is isoplane top, alright? And we're going to draw this rectangle here first, right? And as always, when you're drawing, you gotta make sure that you have ortho mode on, right? So you're basically going to start your first line here, and that's going to be 90, the length of the rectangle. And we're going to go back this way. That's going to be the width of the rectangle, which is 78. And then we continue back this way with the length again, 90. And you come back here to enclose the shape. And this is your rectangle, right, for your hexagon that's shown here. Now, for the next part, we basically got to transfer these measurements here, right? So you have this 23 here, you have two of them at the bottom, left and right, and you also have two of them at the top, right? And then you have this 39 mm measurement where you have one on the right hand side and one on the left hand side, right? So we got to transfer that, and in order to transfer that, we need to use the arc tool. But as always, you need to remember ortho mode got to be turned off. So where the arc tool is here, you're going to choose the option that says center start end, and from here, that would be this point, we're going to put in the first measurement, which is 23, right? So remember, by default the arc is scribed counterclockwise, right, from right to left, right? So this is why my mouse or my cursor is in this direction here, right? So the measurement is 23, so you type in 23, then you press enter, and you scribe your arc there. You move your mouse up, you scribe your arc, and you're going to repeat it for the other side as well. So click back arc again, come to this side here, and remember the arc goes right to left or counterclockwise, so I'm going to place it in this direction, 23, enter, and you draw your arc by moving your mouse. So it's the same as you using a compass, it's just that you're using a mouse to describe your arc. So before we got to repeat back the same thing at the top here, you can simply just select your two arc, click on copy, use this as your base point, and you paste it here at the top, and you press the escape key to stop copying. So the same measurement that you scribe here would be at the top, seeing that it's the same on the top line here as well, right? So similarly, we can do the same for this measurement, which is 39, and it will be from this point. So you type in your 39, enter, scribe your arc, and basically the same step again, right? You're copying on the opposite side here. So as you can see here, we have our points for our hexagon, right? So all you need to do is join the points, but very important, you gotta be careful when you're joining these points. So preferably you want to zoom in and make sure that you're choosing the correct point, right? You see it's telling me it's the intersection there, and similarly for the next point, you need to be careful, right? If you don't zoom in, sometimes you can make the mistake of drawing on the wrong point, right? And that can cause the entire construction to be inaccurate, which is something that you would not want. So here and here, right? So as you can see, your hexagon looks kind of twist in isometric projection, but that's how it's basically supposed to look like, right? See, it looks the same as the image here basically. So now this hexagonal knot has a thickness of 15 mm, right? Meaning that we need to redraw this same thing here, except that we're drawing it above, right? Or basically 15 mm away, which would be above. Now, the good thing with AutoCAD is that um, you don't need to redraw. You can simply just copy and paste, right? So, you're going to enable ortho mode, right? Because we're done with arcs, we don't have to use back arcs now. And you need to change the isoplane now to either right or left. And the reason for this is because when you're on isoplane top, you can only draw right and left, right? You see the image there is showing you. And isoplane left, you can go up and left. Isoplane right, you can go up and right. The image is basically showing you how you can draw, right, in each isoplane, right? Or what limitations you have. So you choose either one of the two, it doesn't really matter since we're going up, and we have to select this entire shape here. So come to this corner here at the top, you left click one time, and then you just move down your mouse over the entire shape until everything is selected, and you left click again and release, and the entire shape is selected there now. So once you have the entire shape selected, you click on copy and you use this as your base point and you move it upwards, right? So because you have ortho mode on, it's going to go straight up, right? And we know that the measurement is 15, so you type in 15 and you press enter, right? And then you press escape to stop copying. So as you see it here now, it looks a bit confusing because you have lines overlapping with each other, right? And this is something that you're going to have to get used to, because other isometric projection or other constructions would basically be like this, right? So you have to be able to now figure out, or you have to be able to use your critical thinking skills to know which lines are going to show. So based off of the image here, we know that the entire top part of your hexagon is going to show, right? So we can switch to the outline layer, click on line, and we're going to start drawing our hexagon here at the top, right? And as usual, you gotta be careful as not to end your line at the wrong point, right? You gotta choose the correct points. Alright? So we have our hexagon there at the top now. Now, based off the image that we have here, right? At the bottom, you're not going to see the entire hexagon because remember, part of it is being blocked, right? So in isometric projection, we don't really outline the parts that are blocked, right? So based off of the image, you would only be seeing this line, which is 1, this one, which is the second line, and the third line here, right? You'll be seeing those 3 lines. And of course, we need to draw these straight lines that are connecting the top hexagon to the bottom one, right? So to make your work easier, you can just draw one of them, and you can just simply select it, click on copy, and we just paste it on the points that it needs to be drawn on. And as usual, be very careful as to which points you choose in there, right? So you can see that the shape is finally coming together, right? You have your hexagon there now, right? And this is what we call a hexagonal prism, right? So now we gotta get this circle here in the center. So I'm going to switch back to my guideline layer, and seeing that we're drawing on the top plane now, because this circle is on the top plane, I'm going to switch to isoplane top, right? So this is another skill that you gotta be able to master. Just from looking from the image here, you gotta figure out which plane you're drawing on. And it's not difficult actually, it's very simple. Looking at the circle that you have there, you can tell that it's on the top plane, because when you view this object from the top, you would be seeing the circle, right? So in order to get the circle, we gotta find the center first. To do that is very simple. Make sure you're on the guideline layer, and you're gonna connect this midpoint to the other midpoint there. And seeing that we already have midpoints enabled, right? Remember, midpoint is enabled here. See, it's ticked off there. We can draw our circle in the middle there now, right? So just an important note, right? The diameter of the circle is 28. We have to remember that. Now, when you're drawing an isometric circle, you don't just use the circle tool. And this is something that you can make note of in your book. Just make a special note. Isometric circles are not true circles. Instead, they're drawn as an ellipse. E-L-L-I-P-S-E. Right? So make a note of that in your book, because it might be something you might need to remember for your paper one. So in order to get the circle here, you're going to type in ellipse on your keyboard, and then you're going to press your enter key, and you're going to type in I. And the reason why you're typing I is because that's going to give us the iso circle option, right? And that's what we want. So you type in I, you press enter. It's going to ask you to specify the center. So you're just going to move your mouse along the line until you find the midpoint there, right? So we're at the midpoint. So you click on the midpoint, and as you move your mouse there, you can see that the measurement changes, right? Now by default, it asks you to select the radius, right? We know that the diameter is 28, so the radius would be half, and that would be 14. So you type in 14, and you press enter. We know that the circle would show, so you just select your circle, and you change it to the outline layer. Now, as you can see here, this isn't just a normal circle, right? It's a hole, because remember, it's a nut, right? They gotta screw into a bolt, right? So we know the thickness is 15, so we gotta copy and paste this circle 15 mm away, right? Going down. And remember, up to down is a different plane, right? So you don't want to be on isoplane top when you're copying this circle. So you change your isoplane, select your circle, you click on copy, and you're going to choose the midpoint here again, and you're going to move the circle downwards, and since the thickness is 15, you type in 15 and you press enter. So you have the circle there, and seeing that part of the circle wouldn't be shown since it's blocked, you use your trim tool and you trim out the extra there. And that is your hexagonal knot, basically, in isometric projection. Alright? Now we can actually look at drawing now we can actually look at drawing the orthographic projection for this here. Alright?